Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk with Lee Pitt. This is episode 6 and it is a bumper edition of the podcast since we had no episode last week. And this time it's Andrea McLean. You've got a good one, guys. She is lovely. She's warm. She's always welcoming. And I was thrilled when she agreed to do this podcast. In this episode, she speaks candidly about growing up in Trinidad, of all places. After being born in Scotland, she came back to the UK. She talks about feeling like an outsider when she returned. She had to deal with some horrific bullying and how she landed her job in TV. One thing I learned about Andrea in this actually is how you wouldn't know it, but she is a risk taker, and how that has been something throughout her life that has led her to where she is today, basically. And she now continues to take risks as she embarks on a solo tour. So let me know your thoughts and enjoy this episode with the lovely Andrea McLean. Welcome. I'm joined in the studio by the delightful TV's Andrea McLean.
It's so weird being introduced, because you sit here thinking, what's he going to say?
I know.
What's he going to say?
Are you nervous?
No.
I mean, I'm not like Paxman.
Oh,
and I haven't dug out any, you can
deep
dig
out whatever you want. I really don't mind. No, I'm not nervous. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be nice. It's going to be a little chat that's just recorded. We have loads of chats. Just this one's going to be recorded.
Yeah, mainly our chats. I think we bonded mainly over two things.
Yeah.
Gin.
Yes.
And perfume.
In the first instance.
Well, you could just narrow that down to alcohol, really.
Distilled or otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I first met you on a crazy night, gin-soaked evening. Well, I didn't meet you. We kind of got to know each other.
Yeah.
We'd met each other before. But then we'd also discovered a very, very strong love of fragrance.
We did, didn't we?
Every day we sniff each other in corridors.
It's very odd.
What are you wearing today?
What are you wearing? Well, I don't really branch out, but you do.
Yeah, well, this year I was lucky enough to be a judge and also host of the Fragrance Foundation Awards, which was amazing. It's like the Oscars of the fragrance world.
I saw.
So it was really good. But what was so lovely was obviously I got sent all these perfumes. Play on words. All these perfumes.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. Literally like a bag full. So it's just brilliant. I've gone from just being like a one perfume kind of girl to now I just chop and change and try. Today I'm wearing, it's called Between Two Trees. Do you remember when I tried to remember what it was called? And I was calling it like Bird on a Branch.
Yeah, it was something like Acorn on a Sycamore Tree or something. It was and then Between Two Trees.
Yeah. So yeah, no, my signature scent is Portrait of a Lady.
Yes, I know that very well.
Yes, I can sometimes I can hear Lee coming down the corridor going, "Can I smell a scent of a woman? Is Andrea here?"
I want to talk. Obviously, we met at the gin event, but before on Loose Women, and we'll get on to that. But I want to talk firstly about you, where you were born in Glasgow, right?
Yeah.
And you promptly moved. When did you move?
Well, I decided, at the age of 4 weeks that I needed more sunshine in my life. No, my parents, my whole family is Scottish.
Yeah.
My mum and dad met at 15 and 16. They got married at 20 and 21. My dad left school with nothing, no O-levels or anything like that. And he became an apprentice engineer. And the factory that he worked in was working on some machinery that was going to be shipped overseas to be put into a factory in the Caribbean. And he was asked if he would like to go along and be part of the sort of team installing that machinery. And what that meant was obviously leaving Glasgow. Now, they'd never even been abroad before. They were a typical working class Glaswegian family back in 1966. They'd got a little flat around the corner from where my mum's parents lived. My mum's family worked in the shipyards on the Clyde. My granny was a cook in the canteen. My granddad was a carpenter on the ships. Mm-hmm. And my dad's mum worked for a bakery. She drove a van. So, came from really working class Glasgow stock. And they went out to the Caribbean. My mum cried for 2 solid years because she couldn't believe she'd left all her family behind. Then they got pregnant with me. Came back to the UK so I could be born in the UK, but around family and everything. I arrived 4 weeks early in the middle of a party at my granny's flat.
Oh, really?
Luckily, my granny's van was there, so I was nearly delivered in a bakery van. So I was, 4 weeks early, premature, in an incubator and all this sort of stuff. Then they had to feed me up to get me big enough to fly back to the Caribbean. Because this was in 1969, so it was 400 years ago, kids, when, things weren't as fancy as they are now. So then we moved back to the Caribbean, and apart from a 2-year gap in the middle, I was there till I was 15.
Wow. What is your earliest memory of living in the Caribbean? Like, and I've never even been to the Caribbean, and I grew up in Grimsby, as you know, a small little fishing town.
Very similar.
Very similar. But I couldn't imagine what's a typical day of growing up in the Caribbean like. Or I suppose, do you really see it as anything different?
No,
because that was
just
kind of your norm.
Yeah. So I grew up in an island called Trinidad, and Trinidad is part of Trinidad and Tobago, and it's the most southerly island in the Caribbean. So obviously a lot of people have heard of Jamaica, Barbados, and St. Lucia, and Dominican Republic, and all that. But Trinidad is because it was the last island. Obviously, a lot of people who sort of populated the island sort of came about through the slave trade and all this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what that meant was, as it was the last island, so many people kind of arrived and never left. So it's a complete melting pot of all different kinds of cultures and nationalities and everything else. So I grew up on an island where it genuinely didn't really matter what your heritage was. Obviously everybody has, in every community there are some people that have issues with somebody, but on the whole it genuinely didn't matter. So for me, what colour I was completely irrelevant. So I was the only white girl in my class. Didn't even really register it. It was just how my friends were my friends. I genuinely didn't think about it. And so and I did my 11 plus. I went to a normal school that everybody else went to. Out there, the 11 plus was still what everyone had to do. So for me, a normal day was the same as anybody's normal day. You got up, you went to school, did your homework, you came home. The only difference was every day was summer.
Yeah.
So you came home from school, and once you'd done your homework, you could go out and play on your bike, and it was sunny and warm and this sort of thing. So I think for me, what that meant was my childhood lasted longer, because we were outside playing for longer.
Yeah.
You weren't kind of bored finding other things to do. And in Trinidad, there's a thing called liming. Now, if you a girl, you're coming round for a lime means you're coming round to hang out.
Okay.
So we would go, Mummy, I'm going for a lime around Rachel's house. So we'd all just go and hang out as teenagers or what have you. And it was very relaxed. It was very, very chilled. What for me was weird was moving back to the UK at 15, and the UK was supposed to be home, because we always talked about, oh yeah, we're Scottish and we come from Britain. When I came back here, I was so odd compared to everyone else, and yet this was supposed to be home, and yet Trinidad felt like home for me, because I was so used to the sort of way of life. It's very respectful. You have a lot of respect for your elders. The way I was brought up at school, you respected your teachers, even if you didn't necessarily like them. You behaved and you did what the teacher said. And so to come to a normal comprehensive in the Midlands, oh my word, it was such a shock. It was a real shock. So
did you not move back to Glasgow? You moved, didn't you end up in Chester or something? What I read.
Well, my dad had very itchy feet, so we basically, I think I went to either 9 or 12 schools by the time I left school, because we moved so often. Because we left Trinidad for 2 years, and when I was 8, and we lived in Glasgow with my granny for a little while. Then we moved to Beckenham. Then we moved to the Philippines for a year. Then we moved to Scotland in a little village called Tarbolton. I went to school there. Then we moved back to Trinidad again, back to my first school I had gone to when I was little, by which time all my friends had moved on. They're like, babe, you left 2 years ago. Only like, child, you left 2 years ago, because they didn't say babe back then. Then did my 11 plus, went to another school. I moved around so much. So when we moved to the Midlands, I was there for 2 or 3 years. And then halfway through my A-levels, we moved again So I did the lower 6 in the Midlands and the upper 6 in Chester. And by that point, I just thought, do you know what? I'm done moving. I've just had enough of being moved around all the time. So because I'd moved around so much, it affected my schooling. So I didn't get the A-level results that maybe I could have done.
Mm.
And so I just went to the first kind of college that would take me and went, yep, I'm off.
That'll do.
Yeah.
I've got this image of this young girl from Trinidad coming back after the summer, arriving in Glasgow in her shorts and bikini, being like, this is not what I expected.
Well, when we moved to Tarbolton, which is this tiny little village in Ayrshire, when I say we, it's my sister and I, we were so used to walking around in bare feet because that's just how we were. You know, I literally felt like Mowgli out of the Jungle Book. And we used to walk to the corner shop. You know, Mum would say, oh, go and get some milk or do whatever. And we didn't understand British money at all. So I remember we used to walk to the corner shop with bare feet, hold the money out in our hands and just let the shopkeeper just pick the right money out of our hands. And they literally used to look at us like we had landed from Mars.
Really?
Yeah. Because we must have looked that way. It wasn't the same sort of cosmopolitan world that it is now. Is that my phone that's pinging? Hold on, let me go and get that. I thought I put it onto silent. Oh, it's my husband. Isn't that nice?
Oh, well, we're going to get on to Nick.
Shall I? Well, I know you'd love to.
I set that one up. He's very handsome.
He is very handsome.
Andrea, follow me on Instagram.
Oh, gosh, okay.
Did you, because I was just thinking about, did you have, your accent obviously wasn't Scottish.
Yeah.
So you came back, what was your accent?
My accent was this weird Scottish Caribbean hybrid.
Because obviously your mum and dad, in the house, obviously you had Scottish accent.
Yeah. And then when I speak to all my family in Scotland, it comes out. If I speak to any Scottish person, it comes out. But then if I speak to someone from Trinidad, it slides into Caribbean. So no, we moved back from the Caribbean, and my accent was random, and basically I was this white girl with a Caribbean accent which people struggled to get their head around.
I was going to say, did that ever create awkward kind of people
moments?
Think you were almost taking the mickey a little bit, because they obviously look at you and thought, why is she putting on a Caribbean accent? Do
you know, I think they might do now, because I think culturally things are very different now, and I think there's a lot of, I hear it sometimes in the street, and it actually makes me laugh, because you hear people almost putting on that kind of Caribbean slang and twang and, all this sort of stuff. I just did it really naturally because it was how I spoke. So there was a lot of double takes, but I don't think anybody thought I was, there was no cultural misappropriation or anything going on. That was genuinely
there was no malice.
No, that was where I grew up. But the reason I made a conscious effort to lose it was because I wasn't fitting in, because I just sounded so weird compared to everyone else. And just little things like in the Caribbean, everybody is auntie and uncle. And, you would never just call a grown-up by their name. It's never Jane. It would always be Auntie Jane or something like that. And also your mum and dad were mummy and daddy, right up until you're a really old lady. It never becomes mum. Whereas over here we kind of have a cut-off point.
Like when you're not a kid anymore.
Whereas I was just still saying, mummy, can I go and play with my friends? And they were like, you say mummy. God, I have to stop that. So I did have to.
Isn't it funny how you went over to Trinidad, you didn't feel like an outsider at all, and none of them treated you like an outsider.
Yeah.
And you come back to the UK, and it's a little bit sad to think that everyone just went, oh my God, who's this person who's
this
different?
Weirdo?
And they almost made you kind of change, I suppose, what you...
To fit in.
Yeah, to fit in.
Well, again, I think that was the beauty of Trinidad, was because there was such a great kind of melting pot that everyone was seen as unique, and it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
But, I did get bullied when I came to this country by some girls at school. But I've thought about it with hindsight, and I think that being different wasn't necessarily the reason. It didn't help, but it wasn't the reason. The reason I got bullied was because there was a girl in PE. Well, I could see a commotion was kind of happening in the changing rooms, and this poor girl was being sprayed within an inch of her life with deodorant. I mean, so much so that the air was getting thick with it. They were literally just going, psh, And then they were shouting at her, you stink, you smell, you this, you that, and calling her all sorts of names. And no one was doing it. And I was still fairly new at the school. I'd only been there for a month or so. And I'm a bit like this. I don't need to be the center of attention. You know me well enough from here. I'm quite happy to sit back and let other people take center stage and all that. But when something is wrong, I can't sit back. And so I just went over I didn't even think about me. I just went over to them and went, what are you doing? Stop it. Just leave her alone. And basically for the next 2 years, my life was hell because they did leave her alone. Yeah, it became about me. And at the time, oh my gosh, I had chronic acne. My mum used to perm my hair. I used to wear jumpers that my granny knitted me. You know, I practically had a target on my forehead. But I was this really lovely, cheerful, nice girl, and I never fought back. So I was literally a sitting duck in terms of getting bullied. And I never told my parents about it because I thought they're going to feel bad because they know I was really happy in Trinidad and they brought me back to this environment and now I'm being bullied. So I never told them. And also I thought I don't want them to go to the school and make a big fuss.
Do you regret that?
No, I don't. I tried to do, I did what I've always done. With the benefit of hindsight, looking back, I've realized this is what I've done throughout my whole life. Whenever something difficult happens, I keep it to myself, I mull it over, and then I try and deal with it really quietly on my own. So I actually went to see the headmaster on my own and said, you have a problem here. There's an issue with bullying, and it's not just me, there's things going on. And he basically told me, don't you come in here, tell me how to do my job. And nothing changed at all. So I just had to keep my head down, get on with it, and just wait until it was the end of that school life, and then carry on.
So you reached the end of school life,
Yeah.
And you went to university. Did you go to university?
Yeah, it was a poly when I went. I went to Coventry Poly. And how I got in there, so I'm going to have a little swig.
Coventry Poly.
A little bit of gin. Can't be a little bit of gin. I went to Coventry Poly. And how I got in there was, like I said, I didn't get the results that necessarily I was predicted because I moved to schools halfway through my O-levels. And I had wanted to do theatre studies, drama, English, photography, all those kind of things. And I didn't get into any of the universities that I'd applied to. So basically, I went through clearing and saw Coventry Poly was offering history, politics, and international relations. And that was they needed the grades that I had. So I rang them up and said, right, okay, can I come see you through clearing? And they said, well, you haven't done any of these core subjects, so it's very unlikely that you're going to get in. So I got into my mum's old Fiesta, and this is before the days of sat-nav. Literally, it's you look on a map and you'd write down on a piece of paper and kind of stick it to the dashboard your exits on the motorway. And I drove from Chester to Coventry on my own, and I found the head of the faculty and just knocked on her office and just said, I really want to come here. And she said, this is not how it's done. You have to apply properly and you have to go through the proper channels. And I said, well, I'm not going to get in if I do it that way because, you know, I don't have the right. But if you meet me and talk to me, you'll see that actually I can do this. And basically, I sat outside her office all day until it got to the end of the day. And she literally came out and went, you're still here. You might as well come in and have a chat. And I got in.
Oh, that's like one of those things where you see it in a play and you think, oh, that would you actually drove all the way there.
Yeah.
See, I don't know if I'd have the courage in myself to do that. I think I'd expect to turn up and they go, well, you probably would have got in if you did it the right way, but meeting you, no thanks. You're annoying.
Well, I've met you and you would get in. You would. But again, there's so many instances in my life, looking back on it, that I did things like that. But I didn't do it from a place of ego. I did it from a place of, yeah, but I really want to get in.
Well, so hard work and determination.
Yeah. I mean, I did it. I got work experience on Marie Claire magazine when I moved. This is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but because I moved, basically, I'm years later, when we can fill in the gaps, I moved to London to be a journalist. And again, same old Fiesta actually.
Oh, wow.
I had that car
for
17 years, nearly, maybe a little bit less, until literally it fell apart. It fell apart so badly that when the the garage that I gave it to, they rang me up and said, we cannot believe you've been driving around in this death trap for so long. It's literally so full of holes, how it didn't fall apart. But anyway, digress. I moved to London with literally everything I owned in the back of this car because my parents had moved abroad. They'd got me a place for 6 months to find my feet and then went, you're on your own. You're a grown-up now. So, sort your life out. And so I moved down, slept on floors, slept in a bedsit, got into journalism school, got a loan, and then just started working for free for anyone who would have me. And I did work experience at Marie Claire. How I got in there was I heard through the journalism school grapevine that someone didn't want their place anymore. They'd got work experience somewhere else. So I said to her, well, if you don't want it, can I have it? And she was like, well, I don't want it anymore. Okay. So I rang up Marie Claire and said, you've got a person on your list who's coming to do work experience with you and she doesn't want to come anymore. Can I have her place? And they said, no, it doesn't work like that. The next person on our list will move up. So they'll get it. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. You don't care who comes in. And I'm sitting with the girl and she was like, yeah, it's fine. She can have my place. Why can't I take it? And they're going, no, but that's not how the system works. So I was like, the system doesn't make any sense. You can call me Georgia if you want to, let me come in. So that was how I got work experience.
Do you know what would have been brilliant if you'd knocked on the office and the professor from the university had moved jobs, opened the door. Oh, God.
See you again.
Imagine. Hi.
But again, it didn't come from a place of ego.
No.
To me, it was logical. Why would I let this opportunity pass?
Do you know what I think that is as well? Is like nowadays you hear stories like that and you hear stories, loads of people go, oh, how did you get into showbiz and blah, 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 blah. And, you hear things where it's like, oh, I went to the office and said, you need to give me this job. And nowadays I think it's different. And I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, it doesn't work like that. But actually maybe that is a case of you just need to take a risk. Because actually what's the worst that would happen? They'd go, no, we're not doing it. Go away.
Well,
It just shows that you're determined and you want it.
I mean, I would never be brave enough to walk in anywhere and go, you need me because I'm the best thing you've ever seen. And I've never done that. But what I have done is if there's something that logically makes sense that, well, okay, I'll put myself forward for it. I'll always put myself in a position where it could happen. Rather, I would never be so ego-driven. Like, for example, I ended up hosting Dancing on Ice Extra on ITV years ago. And I was taking part in Dancing on Ice, the show. And again, I only got that because somebody dropped out with days to go when they were starting. I happened to be doing the weather, wobbling around an ice rink. Christopher Dean saw me and went, she'll do, she can stay upright. And that was on the Friday. And I started on the Monday. Oh. And about 4 to 6 weeks later, we were on air. It happened really fast. So
that was it the first series?
It was the first series, right. Yeah. And so anyway, suddenly there was, for whatever variety of reasons, there was suddenly a hole in the schedule at 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the afternoon, and they were scrabbling around looking for something to fill it. And again, I heard through the grapevine they're going to put this show on called Dancing on Ice Extra, and I'd been voted off the week before. So to me, I thought, well, surely they need a presenter who understands the show inside and out. I can host a live show because I work in live TV. So again, it just seemed logical. So I rang a friend of mine who actually still works here now. He's a lovely guy. And I said, he said, I'm working an overnight. I was like, brilliant. During your shift, could you pull out some clips of me doing some presenting, cobble it together so it's like a minute-long showreel, and could you put it in internal mail and make sure it gets on the desk of the person putting this together? And he did. And then I rang my agent and said, can you ring this person tomorrow? Because there'll be a tape on there. This is how old it was. There were tapes back then. And can you ring them and say, I'd love to come in and speak to you? Because I wasn't brave enough to speak to her myself. I kind of did it that way. And I did. I got the job. I ended up hosting. But again, it wasn't like, you must have me. It was, of course. Here I am. I'm available. You can, take me if you want. That sounds a bit weird. But that was how I got that job. It didn't just... every job I've got, they haven't come looking for me, going, you're the most amazing thing. What this show needs is Andrea. Every job I've got has been, oh, she'll do.
Well,
no, it's true. It's grown from that, but the starting point was always she'll do.
Well,
and then I just made it my own.
Yeah, you've almost gone, hello. You've made yourself stand out, among people that maybe they weren't
going, woohoo, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. So you did journalism,
Yeah.
and you obviously people know you now more so for Loose Women, which we'll get onto, but you did GMTV. You were a weather girl for however long. How was that?
That was mad.
How'd you become a weather girl?
Don't follow my route, kids, because it doesn't make any sense. I finally got work as a journalist after my, sleeping on floors, living in a bedsit, working for free, hustling my way into Marie Claire. Then I misread a job advert, and it said journalist, attention to detail, normally a key ingredient. And basically, when you're applying for something that you really want to do and you're looking through the trade press, you basically apply for everything. It's like when you're an actor. And so there was this job that said journalist with on-screen presence and interest in weather. And I just saw the words journalist and weather, and I thought, well, I did geography A level. Okay, I understand, I mean, I was thinking geography. I wasn't necessarily thinking weather. Okay, I'm sure they're kind of mixed. And it said send in a photo. So I dug out a photo and sent it in. And I literally applied while I'm sitting in my bedsit, And I got this, and you had to leave a phone number. And anyway, I got this phone call from this really irate woman saying, you haven't even sent in a showreel. I was like, what's a showreel? She said, well, I've been called to ask you to come in for an audition. Now, I thought this was hilarious that it was to be a weather presenter's job. It happened, by then I'd got a job. It happened to be on a day off. It was on a Wednesday, and sometimes I did Saturday shifts, so I got Wednesdays off. So I thought, well, this would be really interesting. I can write about it as an experience. What's it like to audition to be a weather girl? How fascinating. So I went along, and because I had trained as a journalist, I could do shorthand. So when we had our briefing, I just wrote everything down in shorthand. A journalist's job is to take a lot of information, condense it down, and make it easy to understand. So for me, that was all I did, was I looked at it journalistically. So we were told all this stuff about cold fronts and da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, and I thought, people don't need to know about that. They just need to know, when they get up in the morning or whatever, is it hot, cold, wet, dry, whatever. And I just spoke like a normal person, but got all the key points in. And I actually found it really easy. And I enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this is fun. And they put an earpiece in and gave me timings, and I found that really easy. It was okay. So I got called in by the same woman, who actually turned out to be lovely, a really nice lady. And they didn't have any work for me right then and there, but they kept my name on file. And 2 years later, randomly 2 years later, I got another phone call saying this woman had left. Someone else had taken over and said, your tape has come up as one to watch, and the Weather Channel would like to meet you. Would you like to come in and meet them? I was like, okay. By then I was production editor where I was working crazy long hours, running a team. It was a really stressful job, and I was looking to move on anyway. And I had a job interview set up that morning for a magazine that I really wanted to work on. So I fitted in the Weather Channel interview that afternoon. And I went home that night thinking, I'm going to get offered the wrong job. And I did. I got offered the weather job, not the magazine job. And I took it anyway, because I thought, it's a way out, it's something different. They only offered me 4 weeks' work, but I took it anyway. So I left a staff job as production editor for 4 weeks' work as a weather presenter. And I ended up doing it for 18 months.
Wow.
Then I got made redundant. Horrible day. No one likes getting made redundant. But I talk about this a lot when I do a lot of sort of motivational speaking and this sort of thing. Sometimes what seems like the worst thing that could happen to you is actually the best. The planets are working for you. It's the best thing. So I heard again through the grapevine that GMTV were hiring weather presenters. So I sent in my showreel and I sent in my photograph. And I got asked to come in for an audition. What I didn't know was the only reason I was being asked to come in to meet them was because the photograph I sent them, my picture, I looked identical to the then editor's girlfriend. So his secretary thought it was hilarious, and they called me in just for a laugh to see if I looked as much like her in real life. Now, I don't know this, and I'm turning up all excited thinking, ooh, I've got an audition for GMTV. And they sat me down, and they were both going, oh my God, she does. That's hilarious. Look at her. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And he literally said, oh, while you're here, you might as well audition. Yeah, so I didn't get the job. what I did get was a bit of holiday cover, and they asked me to train up the person who did get the job, because I clearly knew more about how to do it than they did.
That's just
Okay. But
again, you took it.
I just took it. It's
fine.
Of course. It's a bit of work. So I trained this lovely young man up. It didn't work out for him. He found it quite stressful working in live telly. So they called me back in again until they could find someone that they really wanted. So that was fine. And I basically kept my head down and kept turning up and doing the weather until eventually they just stopped looking. And I ended up staying there for 11 years.
Wow. Amazing. And, like, what is a typical... I can't fathom doing it, you know, I can't...
Weather?
Yeah, as in, you get there in the morning, you obviously get a report from, I'm guessing, the Met Office or whatever.
You go and get a full briefing, you sit with them.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah. So they come and then they brief you and you kind of rehearse. And obviously it was with a
green screen.
I'm doing that. For anyone who can't see, which is all of you, I'm gesticulating with my left hand here as if I'm pointing to...
I still can't talk about the weather without going, and from the north, I have to use my hands.
Do you miss it?
Oh, no. It was great fun. It was brilliant fun. And what was so great about GMTV was... what a lot of people don't realise was GMTV at that time was like Monaco in that it was its own entity. It owned its own airtime. So although we were broadcast on ITV, we weren't just a TV show. We were actually almost like a separate channel. It was a weird thing. So imagine a team of people who aren't just working on a show. You own your own airtime. So we could do whatever we wanted. So what that meant was... once I'd kind of settled in and I realised that I think I'm safe now, you know, I'm okay, I let them know, actually, I'm a trained journalist, I'm very experienced, so I would like to do more reporting rather than just doing the weather. So I used to do a week of the weather and then a week of reporting. Right. And I said yes to everything. So I did... I did every competition. I used to go around the country with Keith Chegwin in the back of a van, surprising people in the morning, which was great fun. I loved working with Keith Chegwin. I used to do the competitions, flying all around the world, kind of like what Lisa Snowden's doing. A lot of that. Yeah. I used to do all of that. But then I found that my natural skill set is I'm not a news journalist, I'm a features journalist. And where my skills are, I'm very good at helping people who feel really uncomfortable talking about themselves or their situation or whatever, making them feel really calm and drawing the best out of them and making them feel really good about themselves. So I did a lot of hospital interviews, I went to a lot of hospices, visited a lot of families who are in difficult circumstances and this sort of thing. And I loved that side of it. That's what I was really good at. And then what it also meant was if I came up with any ideas for the show, I could go and see the head of programming and say, I've got this crazy idea, what do you reckon? And he was brilliant, and he'd say, if it's rubbish, it's all on you. If it's great, I'm taking all the credit. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, I can live with that. And because they then saw that I was capable of more, because I was there for 12 years, I stood in for Lorraine Kelly, I started studying in for Fiona Phillips, working with Eamon Holmes. So my profile started to grow, but that took a decade. Yeah. And I was learning my craft the whole time. At one point, I had myself and a lovely lady called Donna Bernard, we had our own little segment of the show that we co-hosted ourselves. And it was great. It was a brilliant, brilliant place to learn. And I think what we can all do, doesn't matter what age we are, is if you throw yourself into something and keep saying yes, even if you don't know quite yet how you're going to do it, just say yes and learn anyway.
Yeah. And then obviously that moved on to what you're very well known for now, Loose Women.
Yeah.
And you've been, how long have you been at?
400 years. 12 years again.
12 years, okay.
Yeah, but there was an overlap, which is why the numbers don't quite add up. So I've been at ITV since 1997.
Right. And you spoke about everything and everything on Loose Women, and we're sadly running out of time, but I want to
I give really long answers.
I love it. It's a podcast.
Sorry.
You've got to talk.
Okay.
To be honest, we're not running out of time really. I can do this for as long as we want. 3 hours later we'll be like,
we need more change.
Yeah. But I wanted to talk one thing that you have been championing. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. Championing.
Yeah.
Is you spoke really openly about the menopause. You've written a book on
Yeah.
the menopause, Confessions of a Menopausal Woman.
Yeah.
Why did you feel so passionately that you wanted to talk about that? Because I know, and the reason I asked that question is because I know there was, I don't want to say stigma, but it was just kind of, I suppose, a stigma. It wasn't really spoken about.
Yeah.
So what gave you the kind of fire to go, right, this needs to be talked about?
Linda Robson.
Okay.
Basically what happened was...
I thought you were going to go, that's the short
That's
answer. Okay.
I'm really aware you might knock that over right onto the keyboard.
I've got my gin here.
I can't help myself. I have to mum everybody. Watch out, there's equipment and there's water. Okay, so how did that come about? Okay, in 2016, for a variety of biological and horrible reasons, and medical reasons, I had to have a full hysterectomy. Don't switch off. I won't go into full medical mode. You won't hear surgical details. But what that meant was I was going to have to be off work for 6 weeks. Now, obviously on Loose Women, it's a daily show, so and we have such a great connection with our audience. But it hadn't occurred to me that I needed to tell them. So I told all the bosses at work, clearly, I'm going to need this block of time off. All the ladies here, we're all friends, so they all knew. And then it was my last show before I was going to be off air, and lovely Linda said, so what are you going to say? And I said, I'm not going to say anything. It's nobody's business, and it's a hysterectomy. It means I'll go into the menopause, and I don't want to talk about the menopause. And she said, sweetheart, you've got to say something. They'll think you've been fired.
Oh.
And I hadn't even thought about that side of things. So anyway, it got to the live show, and it got to like the last 20 or 30 seconds before we went off air, and I still hadn't said anything yet. And we were in the middle of discussing something, and Linda Robson went, never mind all that, you've got something to say.
Oh.
And she basically just looked at me with that steely but caring look in her eye.
Yeah.
And I went, yes, tomorrow I'm having a hysterectomy, and I'm going to be off air for 6 weeks, so it'll be fine, don't worry about me, but da-da-da-da. I was thinking, oh my God, I've just told the whole world I'm having a hysterectomy. And randomly, just saying it out loud made it real, which sounds strange because clearly I knew it was going to be real. The next morning at 7 o'clock, I'm in hospital. I was the first person in, which is brilliant. I'm unconscious. And for the next 36, 48 hours, I'm kind of out of it, post-surgery and all this sort of thing. But what I didn't know was within that 24-hour period since I made the announcement, 10,000 women got in touch.
Wow.
It was like an insane tsunami of voices clamoring for information, reassurance. They just wanted to know, how was I dealing with it? Why was I having it? What was I going to do when I got out of hospital? And how was I going to cope with the menopause? And what people don't realize is when you have a hysterectomy, especially a full hysterectomy, you go straight into instant surgical menopause. A lot of women think, oh, it's the other way around. You won't get one now. It's totally the opposite. You've had your engine removed, so you go into it. And at that moment, something in my head switched, and I thought, how can I sit on this show, which is supposed to be really open and talk about everything that involves all women watching at home, and I'm too scared to talk about it in case people think that I'm old or I might lose my job because I'm past it now. Actually, I'm looking at it back to front. So actually, I need to talk about it, and I need to help them. So I started writing a diary and logging all my symptoms and the experiences. Then I went back to my doctor and said, will you be the medical expert on this? Because I need to give women the medical advice that they need. I put the idea of a book together, and I pitched it to my agent at the time, who said, absolutely not. It's career suicide. You talk about the menopause. Really? Nobody talks about the menopause. And I just kept pestering, like I do, sitting outside his office, that kind of thing. And I just said, you're wrong. So I understand that you don't want to necessarily go forward with this, but find me someone who can. Mm-hmm. So he put me in touch with a really lovely literary agent, and we met in the Studio 6 outside ITV.
Oh, yeah, I remember it
on
South Bank.
Yeah. We sat in the sun, and I basically pitched this idea of this book to her. And God love her. She just instantly went, I know exactly what you're talking about, and this book needs to be written.
Oh.
So we found a publishers. I wrote the book, and it's been a life-changing experience, not just for me, but for, I mean, literally thousands and thousands and thousands of women who have contacted me to say, thank you for writing the book. Thank you for all this information. Thank you for being so honest and open, so I know I'm not mad.
Men as well, I was going to say as well, because a lot of men have read it to get a kind of glimpse into what it is like for their partners.
It's really important that if you're with a partner and the way I sort of see it is, we don't understand what's going on, so how can they be expected to understand what's going on? So let them have a little read of the book, and they'll enjoy it. I mean, I write like I talk. It's very easy. It's very friendly and approachable. But how it's been life-changing for me, as well as the women, is I typed the end on the book, and I just thought, I don't want this conversation to finish. I've started something now. So I then launched a website called thisgirlisonfire.co.uk.
I know.
And the name is such a cheeky, I love the name. We're so proud of the name. It's like a cheeky reference to women of my age that, okay, some of us may be on fire for hot flush reasons, but really we are on fire because we are halfway through our life. We are not halfway done. And the website initially it was set up as a content site so that we could put articles out and videos and help women, not just with the menopause, but with all sorts of things. But it has grown and grown and grown and grown, so that now This Girl is on Fire is basically a site that it gives women the tools, the knowledge, the confidence, the foundation, the support, and the community so that they can be the best version of themselves. So we've kind of split it into different sections. So we want to help women with their health, their fitness, their diet, their career, their time management, their relationships, every aspect, sort of 360-degree view on a woman's life. How can we help you be on fire in every single aspect of that? And the reason we decided to take it that way is because actually the menopause is a tiny slice of the pie. You are a full 360-degree rounded person. And if you let yourself be defined by one thing, you know, if you had diabetes, you wouldn't just walk around going, I can't do that because I'm this. No, that's just part of who you are. And more and more and more women were coming up to me saying, I want to know how to lead my best life. And you seem to have it all together. I don't have it all together at all. But what I do have is access to experts who can show you how to put it all together. And for me, I genuinely feel like I found my passion, because what I love more than anything else, and it goes right the way back to walking up to a girl being bullied in the changing room at school and helping her and stepping in. I mean, I step in all the time and not necessarily coming forward at all times, but coming forward when it counts. I really feel like I've come forward now when it really counts. And I get so excited when I see women coming up to me and saying, you changed my life. I now have the confidence to, whether it is, I don't know, I've always wanted to open a sweet shop. I've always wanted to write a book, but I'm a little bit shy. I want my relationship to be better, but I didn't know how to start the conversation. To know that I'm helping in some sort of way, literally, that just fills me with so much joy. I'm 50 in a few months, and I have the energy of a 20-year-old because I'm now helping other people, and because it's not about me anymore, it's about everybody else.
So that is Confessions of a Menopausal Woman, available now. It is,
and I'm also doing a one-woman tour.
I was going to, I wanted to say that. I didn't know whether we were allowed to talk about it, but it's been announced.
We are.
Oh, okay, fabulous. And so the details of that is on thisgirlisonfire.co.uk.
And the tour is basically, in a nutshell, it is called Confessions, and it is me just... Basically, I've kind of spoiled it. I've given you everything. I've told Lee everything.
Oh, sorry.
But you will meet me in person, telling loads of showbiz, gossipy stories, how I got to where I am.
So it's going to be a mix of kind of the menopause stuff, but also the motivational speaking stuff and the showbiz stuff. Yeah,
the menopause stuff is just a nod and a wink too, because people are interested in it. But mainly it is just my life thus far, getting to middle age and beyond.
Amazing.
I know, I can't wait.
Thing, do you know what? One thing, just talking to you now, and I never really would have guessed this about you, but one thing that I've noticed is you have clearly this instinctive kind of ingrained thing in you where if you know something and you're like, yes, I want to get it, and you do take the risk. You took the risk going to Coventry University. You took the risk walking into Marie Claire. You took the risk of GMTV. You took the risk of saying, no, this menopause book will not be career suicide. And I hope you don't feel offended. I would never have gone Andrea McLean, risk taker.
Yeah.
Although, after watching Celebrity SAS, maybe I should say something different.
Well, do you know, I think when I'm at work at Loose Women, of course I am myself. I am, all of us here are ourselves. But I'm at work. I'm the prefect. I have to make sure that the show goes to ad breaks on time and comes in and out. And also I have to be very calm and make sure that everybody gets their say and all this sort of stuff. So really, you're only seeing one part of me.
Yeah, of course.
So what's so interesting was when I said yes to doing Celebrity SAS, and Nick and I talked long and hard about whether I should do it or not and this sort of thing. And for those of you who don't know what it is, Google it. It's the most insane TV show where basically these 4 ex-Special Forces men shout at people until they cry and then show them that they're made of sterner stuff. In a nutshell,
it's
that's
a
kind
little
of what
bit
it's
like
about.
I'm a Celebrity, but without the lovely
the fun
frills
bits.
and the fun bits. It's literally like, honestly, I watched it. I felt upset for you.
It's so intense, and I've had people say to me, surely it can't have been that hard when they're there. They must have taken the foot off
like
the gas
a Winnebago
a little bit.
or something.
No, you literally, I was going to say you hit the ground running, but in our instance we didn't. We hit the ground head first from a helicopter.
Well, not the ground.
Yeah, well, we hit that's true. Yeah, it was a very short show. It's now been renamed
That's career suicide.
But it was a life-changing thing for me because it made me realize that for the past, I would say 15 years or so, I've had a whole lot of other stuff going on in my personal life. Lots of people might know my personal life. I'm now married for the 3rd time. I've had not only with a hysterectomy, but I've had quite a few health issues. So I've had a lot kind of going on behind the scenes that I've had to deal with, and it's taken me to some fairly dark places. And what that show made me realize is I'd forgotten how to be brave. So that person who did all those brave things at the start of her career, I was actually just playing it really safe because all these other things were going on in my personal life. It was just about surviving and about putting one foot in front of the other. Stay small, keep your light dim, don't draw any attention to yourself. Do you know what I mean? Because then bad things won't happen. And I was trying to keep everything contained and small. And even now just talking about it, I can feel my body language changing and I get smaller and I feel it's almost feel scared again. When I did that show, basically everything that I was scared of and had faced before, it was like bats flying out of a box and smashing into your face. All this stuff came out. And whilst that was really, really difficult, I realized afterwards it needed to happen. And what doing SAS did was it taught me how to be brave again. And it was like a pilot light went on in me that had gone out. And so there were moments where, like, for example, I was the oldest person taking part.
You were?
By a long shot.
In history?
In the history of the show, I was the oldest person. I was old enough to be many of them, be their parent, to be their mum. My nickname was Mum. It was either Macca or Mum. Mum Macca, Macca Mum, Macca Mum. So I knew I was never going to be the fastest, the fittest, or whatever. But I never gave up. I was literally like a dog with a bit between her teeth. And even when I came in last in challenges or whatever, I just literally got my head down and kept going and kept going. And that little pilot light that came on while I was away has completely reignited me again. And I'm so glad that I did it.
This girl is on fire.
And literally, but not literally.
No.
That's dangerous, kids. And I'm wearing a gold it's not gold, it's a copper bangle. It's worth buttons. It's not worth anything. But one of the SAS people that I was on with, Louise Mensch, she went out first because she injured herself. She hurt her leg. She had one made for all of us, and it's made from Chilean copper. And it's a little memento of our time there. And I wear this every day to remind myself of how brave I am. because there are some days, because I'm doing more and more things now.
Yeah.
I'm speaking at more events. I'm speaking in front of big crowds, and you might think,
And you've just announced a one-woman tour.
exactly,
Like, that is brave.
It's a big deal. And when I have a moment where I think, ooh, that's quite hardcore, then I look down at this little bangle, and it reminds me, girl, you fell backwards out of a helicopter into a lake. You went face first down a mountain abseiling. You know, I fought in mud for a blooming car tire. If I can do that, I can do this. So this is probably one of the most important things that I have.
Andrea, I wish we could stay longer, but
how long
we
have we
can't.
been here? Is it about a day?
50 minutes so far. Yeah.
Is that allowed?
It's like, I can do what I want.
You can do whatever you
want.
want.
It's my podcast. No, well, if they want to hear more, which I'm sure they do, your one-woman tour, so that's on thisgirlisonfire.co.uk. Tickets available. One thing I always end the episode on, though, is I ask a mantra for life.
Right.
Your mantra for life. Do you have one?
Yeah, I do. And it is just keep going.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. Life is all about momentum. You have no choice but to keep moving forwards. You can't go backwards because you can't go back in time. You're in the present right now, and literally all you have is the ability to keep moving forwards. Now, I've had some really difficult times in my life where I've had to pause, but I've never stopped. And even if you take tiny, tiny, tiny steps forward, by the end of the week, you're way further ahead than you were at the start of the week. So that's my mantra. Just keep going.
Just keep going. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you for
McLean.
having me.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.